Today, I'm going to predict everything that will happen in the 2022 F1 season. I'm going to split this video into 6 categories. First is the surprise of the season, the underachiever, the overachiever, the most inter-team friction, constructors' standings, and the drivers' standings. Now I'm editing this just before the 2021 Saudi Arabia Grand Prix, so I'm really going in blind here. Now let's start with the surprise of the season. I'm defining surprise as doing either better or worse than expected. This could be a driver, or a track, or a team, but today I'm sticking with a driver. So let's start. Okay then, here's my first controversial opinion of the video. I'm saying that Sir Lewis Hamilton will perform worse than expected in the 2022 season. I just don't think he'll be able to adjust to the new aero regulations as well as we expect him to. I think he'll kind of start to tone down his F1 career as the newcomers make their way through the ranks. I think with the arrival of George Russell to the Mercedes team, will definitely give him a bit of a reality check. So my surprise of the season is Lewis Hamilton. Phew, with that now off my chest, let's move on to the underachiever of the season. Now, okay, I might get some hate for this, but I think Alex Albon will underperform at Williams. With 1 year out of the sport, I think he'll be quite rusty around the edges. I think there's a lot of pressure on his shoulders to replace Russell and be that star driver to help Williams bounce back to the top. I think he'll perform better than Latifi, but nowhere at Russell's level. So I think that the biggest underachiever will be Alex Albon at Williams. Now onto the overachiever. I think I may be going for a bit of a safe choice here, but I think it'll be George Russell. After seeing what he could do in the Mercedes back in Sakir, I think he will dominate the new regulations, and as discussed earlier, will show up his older, more experienced teammates. Now will he carry the Silver Arrows to another Constructors' title? Well, you'll have to find out later. So George Russell, number 63, will be my overachiever for next season. I think the most inter-team friction will have to be at Ferrari. I think with the field evening out, those two drivers will try and assert their dominance at the Scuderia. They both have been so consistent in 2021 that it's hard to see who the number 1 driver is. Although, I do think that when it comes to the championship, Ferrari would choose Leclerc over Sainz just purely off the history between Charles and the Italian team. So I think the driver pairing with the most inter-team friction will be Carlos Sainz and Charles Leclerc at Ferrari. Now, onto the 2022 Constructors' standings. And at the bottom of the table will be Haas. Although the team has had a pretty atrocious 2021, I think they'll perform a bit better in 2022, and especially Mick Schumacher. So I'm saying that Haas will score 1 and 1 point only during the course of the season, which will land them in 10th. Next up, we have Williams. I do think they'll be on the back foot after the departure of George Russell. I think it'll take Albon at least a year to get to grips with the car, and I'm not expecting anything amazing from Latifi. I do expect a few point finishes for Albon, but I think the entire Williams team will propel up the standings over the next couple of seasons. They do need just 1 season to settle into the new regulations, and then they'll be at the top of the midfield, I think. I don't know, we'll see. Aston Martin is next, taking another step backwards. I find it hard to believe that Lance Stroll will improve any more than his current level. I mean, yes, he has improved, but I don't think he'll improve any more. I also think Seb is winding down on his F1 career, so he won't be putting in his top performance at all. Not a lot to say about this one, but yeah, it's 8th. I think Bottas will be a breath of fresh air for Alfa Romeo. I think he will really establish himself as the top driver, scoring regular points. I think the rookie of Guan Yu Zhou will have 1 or 2 points finishes, but nothing amazing, which will put them solidly in 7th position. AlphaTauri is next on the list. With the increasing consistency of Pierre Gasly, he carried the AlphaTauri team throughout the 2021 season. His back must hurt. And then there's Yuki Tsunoda. To be honest, I think he was overhyped. I remember after the Bahrain Grand Prix, everyone was saying how amazing Yuki did, and this image of him scoring points has stuck with him all season long. And to be honest, I feel bad for him, as well as the amount of pressure from his team, us the fans, and also Helmut Marko. That must have been intense. So yes, he hasn't performed as well as we hoped, but he's doing okay. I think he will improve on the next season, so I'm saying AlphaTauri will finish P6. halfway through now, and I think Alpine have been pretty good this past season. They've seen a podium for Alonso at Qatar, and Ocon's maiden victory at Hungary. I think they'll carry this momentum to be the top of the A category, if you will. With results like these, I think it will put them in 5th position. Okay, here's another controversial opinion for you. I believe that the Silver Arrows of Mercedes will finish 4th in the Constructors' Championship in 2022. Okay, hear me out. As discussed earlier, I think Lewis Hamilton will underperform, bringing the team's points tally down, with him only scoring a couple of podiums. As for George Russell, I see him scoring at least 3 wins and regularly fighting for pole. I feel really confident that he will perform as mentioned earlier, and he'll bring the team's points tally all the way up. I think McLaren will put themselves in the top 3, beating out their engine manufacturer. I think Lando Norris will get his maiden victory and many pole positions. I think him and George Russell will have a very close rivalry as they fight for wins and podiums. As for Daniel Ricciardo, I think he'll improve on his 2021 season by scoring at least 3 podiums and will land himself in the points most races. But once again, he'll be severely dominated by his younger teammate in Lando Norris. Okay, now onto the top 2. After the horrific season of 2020, Ferrari started to bounce back quickly with the arrival of Carlos Sainz. I think this incredible driver lineup will result in many podiums for both drivers, and Sainz's first ever Formula 1 victory, and another one for Charles Leclerc, placing them solidly in P2. So if you haven't guessed by now, number 1 is Red Bull. And over the past few seasons, they've been trying to find the right driver to partner Max Verstappen after the shock decision that Daniel Ricciardo would leave them. After a few failed attempts, it seems they have finally struck gold with Checo Perez. As for Max Verstappen, there isn't much to be said. The man is quick. I think the battle at the front will be close with the other teams, but nearing the end of the season, they'll run away with the championship. Before we get onto my list of the Drivers' Championship, I'd like to ask you to consider subscribing. It's free, only takes a few seconds, and you can always unsubscribe later. My goal with this channel is to build the best F1 community there is, filled with the most passionate fans, like myself. So if you want to help me do that, share this video with a friend. Anyway, let's get on with my Drivers' Championship list. Let's go. Okay, prepare yourself for another controversial opinion. At the bottom we have Nikita Mazepin. I'm just kidding. Is anyone surprised by this? He's the worst F1 driver in years, so I don't think he'll score any points or do anything of note. So yeah. Followed by him is Nicholas Latifi. I think this will be his last season in F1. I think at the end of 2022, Williams will announce that they're recruiting Nick De Vries. If you want to hear my thoughts on that, click on the iCard in the top right hand of the video. So this rounds off the non-points finishers, in my opinion. Next is Mick Schumacher and Guan Yu Zhou. These guys will have a couple of points to their names, but nothing special. Stroll and Albon follow up these two with at least double-figure points, followed by Sebastian Vettel with a few more than Albon. Then in 13th we have Yuki Tsunoda. He will score more points than last year, but again, nothing special. And 12th is Valtteri Bottas, scoring quite a few points carrying that Alfa Romeo team. 11th will be Esteban Ocon, followed by his Alpine teammate of Fernando Alonso. 9th is Gasly, who has planted himself as the king of the midfield and the fastest man outside of the top 4 teams. Now onto the top 8. Now I believe that this will be one of the closest title battles ever, with all 8 of these drivers being exceptionally quick, but the lowest of the top 8 is Daniel Ricciardo. I think he will score a lot more points than the season prior, but this still plants him in 8th place. Okay, so from P7 to P5, I think the gaps will literally be like 10 points. They'll be so close. Okay, controversial opinion number 3 or 4, depending on who you ask. In P7 will be Lewis Hamilton. As I said earlier, he will be the surprise of the season, maybe getting 1 win and a couple of podiums, but will disappoint many. Followed by the smooth operator himself, Sainz. I think he will do well, but not quite as well as his younger teammate, who is in P5. Maybe Charles was a bit more consistent, but I guess it'll be close. Sergio Perez is P4. Why is he here? Because he's consistent, experienced, and a great teammate. Enough said. Now we are onto the podium spots. Comment down below, who do you think would be top 3 in the 2022 Drivers' Championship? I'd love to hear your thoughts. Okay, So in third place, we have George Russell. With consistent points, podiums and wins, he will be obliterating his more experienced teammates in Hamilton. And the runner-up for the 2022 World Drivers' Championship is Lando Norris. The young Brit will be awfully consistent, with many podiums and points. He will be in a very fierce fight for second with Russell. So that means Max Verstappen will win the 2022 Drivers' Championship. As mentioned earlier, the first 3 quarters of the season will be extremely close with the Ferraris, McLarens and Mercedes, until the Red Bulls just find some magic pace in the last couple races and run away with it near the end. So that's it. Those are my thoughts on the 2022 season. Let me know, what do you think will happen? Anyway, I'd like to thank you for watching. I've been Connor, and I'll see you later.